Welcome to episode 1 of Ultimate Opinion with your boy Daniel, aka D Money. On this podcast, I intend to be subjective and transparent when discussing these topics and give my opinion. Today, I will be discussing how about them Cowboys? Yeah, I said it. How about them Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys are valued at $11 billion, making them the most valuable NFL team in sports franchise history. Not only are they the most valuable, but some may say they are also the most controversial, with an outspoken owner, some polarizing players, and a delusional fan base, including myself. I became a Dallas Cowboys fan in 1995. Primetime, Deion Sanders, and Emmitt Smith is the reason why I bleed navy blue and silver. The star on the helmet, the swag of the players, and just the history is so amazing. You either love or hate the Cowboys. There is no in between. Today, I will be giving a brief history of the Cowboys from the beginning to the glory years, the legendary players, the Super Bowls, and coaches. I will also be giving my 2 cents on the black cloud that surrounds this team for nearly 30 years. And how America's team became America's joke. Let's do it. In 1960, JFK is elected president. Harper Lee releases To Kill a Mockingbird. And the NFL announces an expansion team for Dallas to start in the 1960 NFL season. The Dallas Cowboys history began with owner Clint Murchison Sr., who brought the Cowboys into the NFL. He hired Tom Landry, who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants, opposite Vince Lombardi, who was offensive coordinator. He led one of the best defensive units in the league from 1956 to 1959. A long time, especially during those days, because back then defense won championships. It's still like that to this day, but during the 50s and the 60s, it was all about defense, who could hit the hardest, who could tackle, all that good stuff. Also, he hired Gil Brandt as personal director. He was responsible for creating a new scouting and evaluating system for prospects, which would later spread throughout the NFL. He also was one of the first talent scouts to look outside of the U.S. and Canada for potential players. Just a little side note. Back then, most GMs looked within either the region or a certain conference. They didn't go out of another country to look for players. So that's what Gil Brandt was actually known for. And for once, Tex Schramm was hired as general manager. He was known for advocating for a number of changes and innovations that helped modernize NFL. This included instant replay, which we still use today, using computer technology and scouting, which we also use, and the referee's microphone headsets in the quarterback's helmet, which a lot of people, when it comes to referees, a lot of people assume that referees are human. They do make mistakes, but most of the time they try to make the good calls. And sometimes they don't. It's, it's tick and tack, it's, give or take, whatever. But he also brought all that into the league, which was not popular during the 1960s. But that's what my man Tex Schramm did. He also, in 1966, met secretly with the AFL founder Lamar Hunt to begin in the negotiations that led to the 1970 merger of the NFL and AFL, as well as the first Super Bowl in 1967. Yeah, 1967. So these three guys, they really at the beginning, when it came to the Cowboys, they really modernized things and they tried their hardest to put Dallas on the map. It was a new team, so they needed to do things to, shake things up. That's what they had to do. But what really put Dallas on the map is in 1966. The boys joined the Detroit Lions in hosting an annual home game on Thanksgiving Day, which of course greatly increased the team's national exposure. To this day, every Thanksgiving, you cannot, especially if you're a diehard Cowboys fan, you cannot watch the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. That's a must. Turkey, eggnog, stuffing, and Cowboys. That's to me is what America's all about. That's the ish that we do. The only time that the Cowboys have not played on Thanksgiving was in 1975 and 1997. The NFL awarded Thanksgiving games to the St. Louis Cardinals instead in an attempt to boost that franchise national exposure. So the Cowboys decided for those 2 years to get other teams more exposure and looked at more. They decided that for those 2 years they was not going to play on Thanksgiving, which is during that time was actually a good thing for them to do that because by the 70s they were already America's team and they were already had that swag about themselves that it was okay, a couple of Thanksgivings. We didn't have to play. The Cowboys of the 1970s and early 1980s became known as America's team after dominating their regular seasons and winning two Super Bowls, which were Super Bowl 6 and 12 under Coach Tom Landry. The Cowboys of the 1970s had one of the most dominant teams in NFL history, which included future Hall of Fame Bob Lilly, the Cowboys' first Hall of Famer pick. 1961 was actually the first year that the Cowboys had a draft pick, and they selected defensive end Bob Lilly. Lilly was named All-Pro 7 times and was selected to play in 11 Pro Bowl games. His greatest assets were his pass rushing skills and his ability to slice plays with his agility and instincts. Once again, during that time, you had to have defense to win games and to win Super Bowls. And that's what the Cowboys pride themselves on real early. Make sure we get a defense, knock people's heads off, do our thing. Yeah, I had to take me a little swiggle, brothers, brother, throat shot. Oh yeah. By the time the 1980s rolled around, the the Cowboys seemed very mediocre. Danny White was the starting quarterback, and the boys only made it to the NFC Championship twice, losing both games. Unfortunately, the Cowboys had a 5-5 record in the playoffs between 1980 and 1989. The team was getting older, and I believe Tom Landry, being an old school coach, it was hard to adapt. It was hard for him to relate to younger players because he was used to Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, the players that he actually drafted that were different from the players that was coming after him. And as we see today, most older coaches, they don't adapt, they don't relate to the new players. And when that time happens, it is time to definitely call it quits. But in 1984, businessman Bum Bright purchased the team for $85 million. Under new ownership, the Cowboys made the playoffs the first year but declined over the 3 seasons, posting a 7-9, 7-8, and 3-13 season. 1988 was the final year for legendary coach Tom Landry. GM Tex Ram, owner Bum Bright decided that it was time to clean house, which is understandable. You know, when you're a new owner, you do tend to want to bring your own people. But 1988 was also the season debut of rookie sensation playmaker Michael Irvin, one of the franchise's most decorated players and future Pro Football Hall of Famer. Now, 1989 is when the Cowboys really, things started changing for the better. Businessman Jerry Jones purchased the team for $140 million, equivalent to $300 million as of 2023. I'm sure now with this being 2025, it's probably more. But, of course, Jerry Jones brought in his own people. He hired his old teammate at Arkansas, Jimmy Johnson, who was at the time the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes. But the one thing Jerry Jones did, which I believe was not really smart, he fired the GM and he assumed that role, which he still has today. Jerry Jones decided I can be owner, general manager, and president. Which later on, I'm going to discuss how that hasn't been working. But at that time, he made it work. In 1989, the Cowboys drafted former Oklahoma and UCLA quarterback Troy Aikman. But one of the smartest things that Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson did do at the beginning, on October 12th, 1989, Jimmy Johnson, I'm sure with the approval of Jerry Jones, made a decision that would make the Dallas Cowboys not only a dynasty of the 90s, but would produce some of the greatest players of all time. At first, Jimmy Johnson was finna do the unthinkable. He was about to trade playmaker Michael Irvin to the LA Raiders. But Al Davis, the owner of the Raiders, talked Jimmy Johnson out of it. Basically saying, dude, if you were to do something crazy like this, you would probably be done as head coach, not knowing what the future held for Michael Irvin. So Jimmy Johnson had a plan B, which was trading Cowboys' great running back, Herschel Walker. Numerous teams, including the New York Giants, Atlanta Falcons, and Cleveland Browns, all entered negotiations regarding Herschel Walker. On October 12th, 1989, Herschel Walker was traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Furthermore, they gave away first, second, and sixth round picks in the 1990 draft. First and second rounders in the 1991 draft. Second and third rounders in the 1992 draft. And a first round in the 1993 draft. These picks kept and became what would be the most powerful dynasty at the time. Players like Emmitt Smith, Derek Woodson, and Russell Maryland. All three players were key in the Cowboys' early to mid-1990s success. This is beautiful. Only a true Cowboys fan could know so much history. You have to have respect for this. It's just amazing. But the 1990s Cowboys won Super Bowl 27, 28, and 30, beating Buffalo twice and Pittsburgh. In spite of the Cowboys winning 3 Super Bowls in the mid 90s, which could have been more, as of today, Jerry Jones has largely been a pretty bad owner and general manager. The only real intelligent move Jones has ever made as owner slash general manager is hiring Jimmy Johnson. When Jimmy Johnson took over, the Cowboys were a laughingstock. Gone were the days of Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, and Randy White. Jimmy Johnson's hard-nosed, short-tempered coaching style got the best from his players. The Cowboys went 1-15 in 1989. He turned the Cowboys into a Super Bowl team, a team that the fan base was used to in the 1970s. That's what Jimmy Johnson did. But in 1994, Jimmy Johnson resigned as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. In my opinion, this is where the black cloud started to form in Dallas. The issue was Jimmy Johnson refused to give up control. And Jerry Jones had an ego as the size of Texas and wanted all the credit for himself, which to this day, that is one thing you either love or hate about Jerry Jones. Yes, he's the owner. He got full say, but I feel like at that time, he really messed up something that was going good. He did. But Jerry Jones didn't want to listen to nobody. So I believe if Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones could coexist, it's possible that the Cowboys could have won a few more Super Bowls well into the late 1990s. Almost what the New England Patriots was of the 2000s. But like I was saying, Jerry Jones' ego got in the way. He wanted all the credit. And you had a coach that refused to give up control. So on March 30th, 1994, Jerry Jones hired another former Arkansas Razorback alumni and former Oklahoma head coach Barry Switzer. Switzer had a lot of success in the 16 years coaching at Oklahoma, which included 3 national championships and 12 Big 8 titles. Many felt that Switzer was more than okay with going along with Jerry Jones' ideas. Jerry Jones stated that Switzer had the qualities needed in leadership, charisma, motivation, and proven winner to serve as coach. Unfortunately, Switzer did not get to hire his own staff, as assistant coaches from the previous seasons were retained, which is why the Cowboys were able to win Super Bowl 30. Not only was it still Jimmy Johnson's team, but his staff. Jerry Jones made a huge splash in 1995 when he signed Deion Sanders to a lucrative contract for 7 years, $35 million with a $12.9 million signing bonus, and that was back in 1995. So that was some big moolah coming that way. To this day, that is the last time Jerry Jones has made a big splash in free agency. Along with the triplets, Primetime helped the boys win their last Super Bowl of the 1990s. Now, this is where the Cowboys' history began to take a hard left. And like I said, many of us diehard Cowboy fans, which were watching during this time, you could see a shift changing in what was going on with the organization. In the late 1990s was the end of a dynasty. Barry Switzer resigned in 1998 with having 2 losing seasons and some disagreements with quarterback Troy Aikman. Injuries also took a toll on 2 out of 3 triplets. In 1999, Michael Irvin suffered a career-ending injury and was forced to retire in May 2000. Also in 2000, Troy Aikman retired due to many concussions and persistent back pain. In all, Michael Irvin accumulated 750 receptions for 11,904 yards, 65 touchdowns, and was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in 2007, becoming one of the greatest Dallas Cowboys of all time. Troy Aikman threw for 32,942 yards, 165 touchdowns, and 141 interceptions. Pretty good for a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. So earlier I had said that I believe the black cloud that hovers around this team after Jimmy Johnson resigned started. Going into the new millennium, it was in full effect. Once Troy Aikman called it quits, for the next 4 years, the Cowboys had a revolving door of quarterbacks and head coaches. And once again, this was during the time when I was a teenager. And after growing up, watching Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Deion Sanders, when you see your team that you've been a fan of since your childhood pretty much crumble and it not get better year after year, you start to have doubts. Was like, well, I'm a hardcore fan, but I don't know if I can keep around with losers. But I always say, if you are a true fan, win or lose, you still got to ride with that team. You can't be fair weather. You can't be wishy-washy. You can't be on no bandwagon. No, you have to be all in or all out. So I'm going to break down some stats. Since the year 2000, after Troy Aikman called it quits, we went through a litany of quarterbacks. We had Randall Cunningham, 3 wins. Anthony Wright, 5 wins. Quincy Carter, 31 wins. Ron Leaf, 3 wins. Clint Stoner, 2 wins. Chad Hutchinson, 9 wins. Vinny Testaverde, I actually like saying that, Vinny, 15 wins. Drew Henson, 1 win. And then Drew Bledsoe, 22 wins. Unfortunately, out of all those quarterbacks, within the span of 4 years, Quincy Carter is the only quarterback on this long list to play in a playoff game before Tony Romo would start a couple years later. And that's what we had to deal with for 4 years. But, it gets worse. If you thought the revolving door of quarterbacks were bad, the head coaches were basically just hit and miss. We had Chan Gailey with the 18-14 record, 0-2 in the playoffs. Dave Campo, 15-33. No playoff wins. So basically, head coach Dave Campo didn't even get us to the playoffs. But as much as I love to criticize Jerry Jones, I do have to give him credit when credit is due. In 2003, Jerry Jones made another good decision when he lured former New York Giants and 2-time Super Bowl champion head coach Bill Parcells. The Cowboys was coming off 3 straight 5-11 seasons. Once again, he decided to shake things up. In typical Bill Parcells fashion, he mandated upon his arrival that to have the Cowboys star placed on the helmet was a privilege reserved only for players that made the team. So basically, to put in short term, if you were trying out for the team, you basically just wore a regular silver helmet with no logo. Which I see why he did it, because it was giving you motivation. Because the star is a symbol. It's respect. It shows that when I got this star on my helmet, I'm a Cowboy. And Bill Parcells made sure to hold his players accountable. Which, to this day, which I'm going to go through. Dallas Cowboys players don't like to be held accountable, unfortunately. So, in 2006, the Cowboys signed controversial former Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Terrell Owens, whom Parcells never referred to by name, but rather as the player. Once again, that was the issue that seemed to be what cracked the relationship of Jerry Jones and Bill Parcells. Jerry Jones wanted a specific player. Bill Parcells did not want it, but Jerry Jones, being the owner, general manager, and hell, probably if he wanted to, the head coach of the team, decided that no, we are going to sign Terrell Owens, which, of course, Bill Parcells is one of those coaches, just like Jimmy Johnson, Bill Belichick. If he doesn't have control, it's not going to work out. And, of course, Parcells would finish his Dallas stint with a 34-30 record and no playoff wins. But Parcells' greatest accomplishment as Cowboys head coach was the development of quarterback Tony Romo. He signed the QB in 2003 and helped him develop into a Pro Bowl quarterback by 2006. But the Cowboys were not disciplined. And that was the last head coach we had that could have disciplined him. In 2007, Wade Phillips was named the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, replacing the retired Bill Parcells. He is the son of legendary coach Bum Phillips. Unfortunately, in the 2007 playoffs, he led the Cowboys to another playoff loss. In the 2009 playoffs, he led the Cowboys to a wildcard win against the rival Eagles, ending the club's 13-year playoff win drought, which means the Cowboys went 12 straight years with either not making it to playoffs or being one and done. After an embarrassing loss to the Green Bay Packers toward the end of the 2010 season, Wade Phillips was fired. He finished his stint with the Cowboys with a 34-22 record and 1-2 in the playoffs, which is now basically average for a Cowboys coach. You either go 1-2 in the playoffs or you just go one and done. In November 2010, a familiar Cowboy was named interim head coach, Jason Garrett. After Garrett finished the 2010 season with a 5-3 record down the stretch, he was officially named the 8th head coach in Cowboys history in January of 2011. Garrett was the first head coach born after the team was founded in 1960 and the first former Cowboys player to hold that post. From 2011 to 2013, he had 3 straight 8-8 seasons, losing in the regular season finale each season to the NFC East division rivals, missing the playoffs each time, and giving him the nickname which he earned, Mr. 8-8. But I must admit, in 2014, all that changed. That black cloud that I've been referencing, it was becoming gray. In 2014, the Cowboys, featuring several key draft picks and a maturing offensive line and the emergence of wide receiver Dez Bryant and running back DeMarco Murray, finished atop the NFC East and were tied for the best record in the conference with the Packers and the Seahawks. But during the divisional round against Green Bay, the Cowboys were screwed, in which a lot of Cowboys fans believe in what will be famously known as the Dez Bryant catch that was overturned in official replay, sealing the Cowboys' loss again. So, like I said, if you are a Cowboys head coach and you happen to make it to the playoffs, you're either one and done or you're 1-2. You're gonna win the first round but lose the second. That became the theme of the Dallas Cowboy head coaches. In 2015, the Cowboys entered the season with great expectations, but Tony Romo played only 4 games after suffering 2 fractures in his left collarbone. I've actually had a broken collarbone. It's painful. It is painful, but mine's was me playing with my brothers. His is actually a football injury, so it's probably different, but the pain is still pain. But anyway, the team finished with their 4-12 record. In 2016, the NFL draft, the Cowboys drafted for the future when they drafted Ohio State running back Ezekiel Elliott and Mississippi State quarterback Dak Prescott. Again, again. Tony Romo suffered another back injury during the preseason and officially retired in 2017. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler, led the Cowboys to 4 postseason appearances. So he was pretty much average. Um, he had a couple playoff wins, but that's not surprising, coming from an average Dallas Cowboys quarterback, an average coach. Towards the end of the decade, Jason Garrett's tenure with the Cowboys was over. After the 2019 season, his record as a head coach was 85-67, and he was 2-3 in the postseason. So he actually had a better postseason record than Wade Phillips, but it was just by a game. Now we get into 2020, is when once again we go through another head coach. More recently, the Cowboys hired its 9th head coach, former Green Bay Packers head coach Mike McCarthy, who spent supposedly the offseason watching game film and learning about analytics. But if you're a Cowboys fan and you've been watching Mike McCarthy for these past 5 years, you know that his offense is real vanilla. All he wants to do is throw. And that's why we're basically in the position that we're in right now. Even though the first season he was head coach, Dak Prescott did suffer a terrible leg injury that sidelined him for the rest of the year. So 2020, we really give him a bye. He didn't have his quarterback, and we was playing with a backup, and we finished the season 6-10. Okay, that's expected, but once again, if I'm going to criticize a coach, I got to give him credit. And Mike McCarthy in 21, 22, and 23 posted 12-5 seasons, and we won 2 division titles. So, with Dak Prescott, a solid defense, good running game, and wide receivers, for 3 seasons, we was actually able to make some noise and looked like a good team. But, of course, so far, Mike McCarthy has a 49-35 regular season and 1 playoff win. So it takes me back to the head coaches that we've had for over a decade are pretty much all average. Like I said, they get us to 1 or 2 playoff wins. That's about it. And supposedly, our season ended last week. Maybe Mike McCarthy be back. Maybe he won't. Me personally, being a diehard Cowboys fan, which I would be, it would be 30 years this year since I'm in a Cowboys fan. I know a long ass time. I wouldn't mind us turning the page on Mike McCarthy, possibly going younger. Looking at some of these college head coaches, maybe another NFL coach. Just at least just taking a look at, because sometimes you have to. It's okay to turn the page and move on and try to get younger. That's what the Cowboys need to do right now. We need to get younger, not only in management and coaching. We got some young players, but we just need a younger staff so they can grow together, so they can be more relatable. And that is where this black cloud comes from. Since 1996, the Cowboys have endured 13 playoff exits. They've only reached the number one seed twice. In 2007, they went one and done against the New York Giants, who eventually won the Super Bowl. That was that famous Terrell Owens got emotional defending Tony Romo during his infamous post game saying, "That's my quarterback, man. That's my quarterback." Also, in 2016, when the Cowboys had the number one seed, they lost to the Green Bay Packers on the last minute Aaron Rodgers throw. The Cowboys are 5-6 as a favorite in the post season since 1996. 1996 is almost 30 years ago. Let that sink in. 5-6 in the postseason since 1996. That's a WTF moment right there. Our good quarterback, we got our rising star quarterback. Dak Prescott is now 2-5 in his playoff career, tied for the worst record by any quarterback in playoff history. And we just paid this guy 4-year extension worth $240 million. Me being a die-hard Cowboys fan, I would say this until I'm blue in the face. Dak Prescott is not that guy. He don't see the field. He miss open receivers. He airballs. He takes unnecessary sacks. He throws interceptions. He is an average quarterback that is not worth that money. We could pay any bum to play for the Cowboys, still making all that money. What Dak has been doing, we could get any quarterback to do that. He is not warranted being at that time the highest paid quarterback. And it sickens me being a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm quick to give Dak and the boys their flowers when they're clicking, when they're actually playing and looking like a team. But I'm going to always criticize the players, management, and coaches. And this is the issue when you either most people I talk to that are Cowboys fans, the reason they became a fan, it's either my dad was one growing up, or I like this certain player, or it's just the star, or it's just the city of Dallas. The city of Dallas is a beautiful place. A beautiful place. I mean, during the summertime it gets hot though. And that's and that's kind of unbearable, but it's Dallas. To be a Cowboys fan, you have to endure the hate when they win or lose. Because once The Cowboys lose a game anytime during the season, postseason, whatever. You gonna get clowned. What about your boys? Hey, we still them boys. Whoop whoop whoop. It happens, but over years, I used to. Maybe when I was in my 20s, I let it get to me because I'm just like, okay, you know what? Y'all just being petty. But now I just laugh. I'm just like, that's my team. Yeah, we sucked yesterday. Oh, yeah, we sucked Monday night. I I am one that would call out my Cowboys. There's not really too many objective Cowboy fans. Most of them, I admit, are delusional. Most of them, oh, next year's our year. We got it next year. No, I'm gonna keep it real. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be like, if we play like shit. Oh yeah, Dak Prescott didn't play like he didn't play good. CD didn't step up. Michael Parsons did. I think that's the problem, and that's what I always try to tell a lot of Cowboys fans. Don't talk a lot of stuff. Don't be delusional. You have to be objective. You have to be like, yes, my team played like crap yesterday. That's what they do sometimes. That's how you have to be. But I've met a whole lot of delusional ones, and I said, and I can see why it's easy to make jokes because when you're a delusional person, especially when it comes to a certain sports, you open yourself up to get clowned. But I try to keep an open mind. I love my boys. I'm always ride with them. I will. I will always support them, but I will be critical and objective at the same time. I really don't see things changing. Me personally, since this is my opinionated show, my opinion, two things have to happen for the Cowboys to get over this hump. I read off a whole lot of history, and we only had the Cowboys have been around for 64 years. 64 years. During the 1970s, you had Tom Landry, a hard nosed coach who got the best out of his players. In the 1990s, you had Jimmy Johnson, again, hard nosed coach, got the best out of his players. That little time in 2003, between 2006, you had Bill Parcells. Granted, that wasn't really a good team, but I believe if he could have stuck around longer, Tony Romo was emerging. You had a young Jason Witten, a young DeMarcus Ware. You was gonna be getting Miles Austin. I believe if Jerry Jones would have stayed out the way, I believe between 2003 and possibly 2010, I think the Cowboys would have had another coach that could have kept them accountable, got the best out of them, because that's what players need. But Jerry Jones makes it a point to hire a bunch of yes men. That's why these coaches that I read off had such a bad record because all they were yes men to Jerry Jones. They didn't rock the boat. They didn't make any waves. Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells refused to do that. But it's almost like if you're a parent and you refuse to discipline your kid, how do you think they're going to turn out? Do you believe that they're going to give their best potential? You need structure, you need discipline, you need guidance. But Jerry Jones, he he would love to have all that and still get the credit. It doesn't work like that, Jerry Jones. You're 82 years old. You've been talking about for the past few years your mortality, how you would do anything to get a Super Bowl. First, sir, you have to adapt. You have to realize I am just the owner. There's only so much I can do. Let me get a coach in here that can coach. Let me get a coach in here that can be a leader of young men. Let me get a coach that won't be a yes man, that will give me pushback, that will be like, no, 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 no. Jerry, I'm the coach. I'm going to do it this way. Until that happens, Mr. Jones, you're you're never going to see another Super Bowl. Never. And then your legacy will be tarnished. People won't remember the 1990s. That was 30 some years ago. We're in the now. Us Cowboy fans are craving for a Super Bowl now. We have a good team. We don't have a great quarterback, but we do have a good quarterback. We got a great wide receiver. We got a somewhat decent, solid defense. I'll definitely give you that. But we need coaching. That is what we are craving for. And until you get out your way and until you are ready to be like, this is not about me, it's about my players, it's about my coaches. Hell, it's about my fans. Think about us. The loyal fans that have been rocking with you, even when we don't agree with some of your decision making, we still rock with you and the Cowboys because we are die hard. Think about us. And realize that this thing is bigger than me. I've got to change. I've got to realize that the way I've been doing things, it hasn't been working. It won't work. That's what you need to think about, Mr. Jones. How are you going to make this team better for the players, the coaches, and the fan base? No, loyalty only goes so far. And I must admit, after this disappointing season, I definitely thought about some things. It made me look at things differently. You know, I'm the type of person, I am very competitive. I don't like losing. I don't like cheering for a losing team. And after the 2024 season, a lot of Cowboy fans was on the fence like, why are we keep doing this? Ain't nothing changing. Ain't nothing changing, which is true. But only one man can make that difference. And that's you, Jerry Jones. What are you gonna do in 2025? We don't want to hear about no good team. We don't want to hear about no all-in BS. We don't want to. We done heard all that. We don't want to hear that. What are you going to do to show us why we should buy the merchandise? Why we should attend the games? Why we should still be a fan? What are you gonna do? Because you always all talk. I must admit, win or lose, you still man up and talking to cameras, but still that's enough talking. Like I said, you've been talking too long. We need to see results. We need to see action. That's what we need to see. So just a little bit of food for thought. A coach with structure, discipline. That's what we want to see. At least me. Now, I can't speak for every Cowboys fan, but me, myself, I do believe a team like Dallas needs discipline and structure. And that's what you need to be thinking about. We have a long off season. We got the draft in a few months. We got free agency. We need to see changes, Jerry Jones. So we need to know that you aren't just serious about the brand and that you are actually serious about trying to win Super Bowls. Because you are the one who've been talking about your mortality for years now. So what are we gonna do? I mean, did you want me to send my resume? Did you want me to go there and be a motivational? Because I can do that. Hell, half of them are younger than me anyway. I can go in there. I can speak to them. I can do that. I'm whatever it takes. Just do something. But what you have been doing for almost 30 years, dude, it's not working. It is not working. So don't eat. It's not. It's not. And a lot of Cowboy fans now, we don't fall for the okie doke no more. We know through your BS. We see it. It don't work. So what you gonna do? We need changes. Major changes. ASAP. Right now. Starting this year. So, with that being said, that was my first episode of Ultimate Opinion. Thanks so much for tuning in. When covering these topics, most of the time, my personal feelings are involved. It is my opinion and my opinion alone. I'm very open minded, and I would love to hear from you guys. And more importantly, I would love to hear your opinion. That's what matters the most. Once again, I'm your boy Daniel, aka D Money. Until next time, be blessed. I'm out.